From excitement to embarrassment, Artemi Panarin's debut with the LA Kings was pretty good, but spoiled by a third period collapse against a Vegas team without its best players, an unacceptable result. We'll get into all that and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years. Also one of the co-hosts of Locked On NHL Game Night, a nightly podcast and YouTube show that recaps the night in the NHL. And I'm a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. The LA Kings played game number 57 of the NHL regular season. The first game back from the Olympic break, the start of a 6-game homestand, and the first of back-to-back games against division rivals. On Wednesday, it was the Vegas Golden Knights. And the LA Kings would have the debut of the newest king, Artemi Panarin. And the Kings had a 2-1 lead going into the third period and proceeded to allow a team without 5 key players to score 5 goals in the period, and the Kings lose by a score of 6-4. Game stats in this one, it was the Vegas Golden Knights leading in shots on goal 25-19. Power plays, Kings were 1 for 1. Vegas was 1 for 2. Faceoffs favored the Kings 53.8% to 46.2%. Hits favored Vegas 26-24. Block shots favored the Golden Knights 24-14. Big takeaway from this one. Maybe I shouldn't be surprised at this point, but I was surprised by this one. It's one thing to be offensively challenged, what the Kings are. It's one thing to be a team that plays a ton of close games, but losing that game in that way to that team on home ice, I don't know any other word to use than unacceptable. Now, there's a lot to get into, but let's start with the start. I thought the Kings opened up this game. I don't know if flat is the right word, but they were uninspired. And I don't buy the argument that, they were up for a couple of weeks, so there's some rust. I would say they should be well rested and have a ton of energy to be coming out and playing strong right from the opening faceoff. That didn't happen. They should have been like a pack of hungry dogs ready to pounce on some injured prey. They were not. And the Kings, going into this was a chance to start off this second part of the season, if you will, with a much needed 2 points. And that's how you start the game. No shot mentality, no sense of urgency. They had 6 shots on goal in the first period in a game that they really, really needed. And, not just for the points, obviously, but also to set a tone for the final push to the playoffs. This is how we're going to play coming out of the break. I mean, how does an offensively challenged team think they're going to score enough goals to win by not having that shot mentality and getting less than 10 shots per game in every period of a game? And yet they did score 4 goals. And that means that the worst part of this is something that was supposed to be a strength all season and lately has not been, and that is their defense. 4 goals allowed in the third period while the Kings had their goalie in net. There was an empty net goal. Kings allowed 3 goals on 5 shots in a span of 4 minutes and 14 seconds. They went from up 2-1 to down 4-2. To me, that was the biggest concern in the final 2 games before the Olympic break. And that's clearly the biggest concern after this game, defense. And the Kings have been giving up goals in bunches. I mean, the last game before the break was a 4-1 loss to Vegas. They allowed the Golden Knights to score 4 goals in the first period in a span of just over 5 minutes, 27 seconds. And 3 of the goals were scored in a span of 2 minutes. But to do it against this lineup that the Golden Knights rolled out there, I mean, this is a great win for Vegas. They showed heart. They showed guts. They played without 5 very significant players: Jack Eichel, Mark Stone, Mitch Marner, Shea Theodore, and Noah Hannafin, all given the game off to rest up after taking part in the Olympics. That's a great win for Vegas, and it's an awful loss for the LA Kings. And I mean, I don't want to overreact to any loss, but to lose the first game out of the break against a very shorthanded team on home ice in the debut of your big pickup, Artemi Panarin, and you're fighting to get into a playoff spot, it's a brutal loss. It's a brutal loss. You'll never guess what Jim Hiller had to say after this one. He said sarcastically, quote, "They played hard, so it's the NHL," end quote. There's more to it than that, but that's the start of it. They played hard, so it's the NHL. Great. He continued to Jim Hiller, quote, "They played hard. They missed some of their high-end guys. They made it hard on us. They checked hard. We had an opportunity clearly to win the game and made 3 mistakes in 4 minutes, and all 3 of them ended up in the back of the net," end quote. Is it me, or does he sound like he's almost saying like the Kings played well, they just had a few breaks go against him? We've heard that before from him. And then there were a couple of fluky goals for Vegas, but I'm a fan of an NHL insider named Elliot Friedman. He has a podcast that's very popular, and it's the only hockey podcast I listen to, just to kind of get an idea of a lot of the things going on around the NHL. And in a recent podcast, he mentioned Jim Hiller by name and was talking about don't put gasoline on a fire. And the translation was that when things are going bad and things are frustrating, don't make them worse by saying something in the media, that you're going to regret, by bashing your team or calling out a player. And I get what he's saying, and he's probably right in most cases. But when you have a coach who never challenges your team and never calls anyone out and never seems to hold anyone accountable, I mean, at some point, isn't that just a fire that you're letting burn and eventually is going to burn the house down? It might not be as fast because you're not putting gasoline on it, but you're not doing anything to put the fire out. I mean, at this point, I think I'd just like to see him get pissed off. I mean, I know a lot of us are watching that. I mean, I think I'd even take if he came out and said something like, it was almost defiant. Like, you know what? We weren't good tonight, but tomorrow we're gonna win. We're gonna play our best game of the year, and we're gonna beat the Oilers. And just, I don't know, show some passion. I mean, that's putting it out there, but do something to kind of inspire the team. I don't know. I mean, there is a time for patience and there's a time for staying the course. But sometimes when you do that over and over again and nothing seems to change, shouldn't you change something? And I know the emails are going to come in this week. Fire the coach, fire the coach. I'll believe it when I see it. I just don't expect the Kings to do it. And I'm not going to drive myself crazy over, asking why aren't they doing it over and over again. If they do it, they do it. If they don't, they don't. I have no control over it. And I'm not going to lay 100% of this on Jim Hiller. Coaches coach and players play, as they say, but I have not seen anything in him that gives me any confidence that he's going to help this team out of its issues and its struggles. So why would that change? And certainly nothing he said after this game gave me any confidence or any feelings that he's going to put a stop to this. He's going to help turn things around. No, it's a tough league. Had a few bounces go their way. I was hoping the Kings would come out and take advantage of the situation they found themselves in. I was hoping they would set a good tone for the rest of the regular season and a playoff push. And maybe they did set a tone, but it was not the tone that I wanted them to set. Maybe the tone that is saying they aren't good enough. Well, the bread man actually was good enough. I thought it was a solid debut for Artemi Panarin, which probably makes the loss even more frustrating. We'll get into that next year on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two, flight tickets, the whole experience. And if you're already thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock that in. Futures this time of year can be exciting as you project which team will win the championship or grab a conference title. It adds that extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch of the regular season. The Lakers are going to be a playoff team. Clippers are trying to be one as well. Can Luka and LeBron make an NBA title run? And now not only can you win cash, but you can also win a trip to see the two teams battle for the title. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, let's get into some of the individual performances for the Kings in this one. And the lineup for the Kings was obviously a little bit different because of the addition of Artemi Panarin. We would have a top line of Alex Laferriere with Panarin and Adrian Kempe, Anze Kopitar centering the second line with Quinton Byfield now on the wing and Trevor Moore. Alex Turcotte centers the third line. Warren Foegele would be on the third line with Andrei Kuzmenko. And the fourth line, we would take out Taylor Ward and we would take out Jeff Malott, and Joel Armia and Corey Perry would join Samuel Hellenius on the fourth line. The defense would look a little bit different. It was Drew Doughty with Brian Dumoulin, Joel Edmondson and Brant Clark the same, and Mikey Anderson with Cody Ceci. Anton Forsberg was in net with Darcy Kemper serving as the backup. Now, normally I would start with the goalie and his individual performance in this game, but not in this one because clearly all eyes were on Artemi Panarin in his Kings debut, playing on that line with Kempe and Laferriere. I thought the breadman looked good. He is a very smooth player. He's very poised with the puck. He did take a penalty late when he got kind of roughed up in the corner. I mean, frankly, I thought he showed a little fight in him. I mean, that wasn't the best time in the world to get a penalty, but I also thought it was just two guys kind of going at it, to be honest with you. But Panarin did finish with 2 assists. He had 3 shots on goal. He played 21 minutes and 5 seconds. There was only 2 other skaters for the Kings who had more minutes played than Artemi Panarin. He had 2 assists in the game, as I mentioned. The first assist was on a power play. Panarin playing high on that left side. I think he was actually trying to pass it through the one side of the other danger, Kempe kind of at the back post, but it went off Quinton Byfield's skate and in to make it a 1-1 game. Panarin's second assist was, without question, the best moment of this game for the Kings. Tied 1-1 in the second. Brant Clark deflects the puck off a Vegas player's stick. Adrian Kempe gets it, passes ahead to Panarin. He skates it into the zone, finds a trailing Anze Kopitar in the middle of the ice, who then sends it back to Kempe, who'd been trailing the play, and puts it into an open net. Tic-tac-toe passing, absolutely beautiful. And a fun reaction from Adrian Kempe, who was looking back and forth at Panarin and Kopitar, who on each side of him saying, wow, guys, that was some nice passing. With those 2 assists, Panarin now has 40 assists on the season and 59 points. For Adrian Kempe, 21 goals and 48 points. And for Anze Kopitar, his 17th assist and 23rd point. And he is now 7 points away from passing Marcel Dion to become the LA Kings all-time leading scorer with 25 games left to play. I did think that Anze Kopitar was the one player for me that looked a little different. I thought he had some jump in his game and looked like that he had some more after this break for the Olympics. Everyone else looked pretty much the same, but I thought Kopitar had a little bit extra. All right, let's get to Anton Forsberg. Not all on him, but he also wasn't part of the solution either. 5 goals allowed on 24 shots. It's the 3rd time this season he's allowed 5 goals in a game. 2 of them have been against the Vegas Golden Knights. One of them was a win, though. The first goal he allowed was a shot deflected wide by Brandt Clarke, and then an odd rush, or an odd man rush, I should say. It bounced off of the boards and went right to sniper Pavel Dorofeev. He banked it in off of Forsberg's pad. That made it 1-0. Joel Armia was pinching a lot up on the boards, and Alex Turcotte couldn't get back to help out. It kind of left Clarke and Forsberg in a tough spot. And Vegas was able to score. Second goal was a shot attempt that was shanked. Loose puck ends up going back to the player that originally passed it to the player who was trying to shoot, and he would score. Joel Edmondson didn't stay with the man after the initial shot, and that player was the one who put in the rebound. That's a tough one for Forsberg because he's reacting to that shanked shot where, there's a motion of shooting and he drops down in the butterfly and then he can't recover to get that second shot. Third goal was another weird one. Mikey Anderson blocks a shot and the rebound goes right back to the shooter, and then Anderson falls down and is out of the play, and that gave Brandon Saad all the time and space he needed to pick a corner, and he did. Fourth goal, Vegas player splits right in between Joel Edmondson and Brandt Clarke, and then he just throws it from a bad angle, and it goes in, and that's one that Anton Forsberg absolutely needed to make a save on. The fourth goal, pass back post on the power play, a tap-in goal pretty much after it was in the player's skates, but he got it and put it in pretty easily. Was Forsberg good enough in this one? No. Did he get a lot of help from his teammates? Not really. Quinton Byfield. Q gets his first 2-goal game of the season, numbers 12 and 13, and he did it in his first game being moved from center to the wing. We had hoped that move would help to spark him. Certainly that's the move. That's the reason why the coaching staff made the move as well. Now, his first goal was on the power play, so it wasn't with his new line mates, and that we told you it went off his foot and in. And people will be like, oh, that's a lucky goal. Well, Vegas had a couple of pretty lucky bounces as well. You make your own luck, as far as I'm concerned. The second goal for Byfield was just him putting in a nice shot in close range, got a loose puck and put it upstairs. Certainly sucks that Q had a big offensive game, his biggest offensive game of the year, and the Kings don't get 2 points out of it. But I thought Artemi Panarin had a nice debut, and I thought Quinton Byfield's first game on the wing was successful. Warren Foegele and Andrei Kuzmenko were paired together on a line with Alex Turcotte. Be interesting to see how this one turns out, if they stick with it for a while. Jim Hiller had said on Tuesday that an unnamed player had been so good in practice that he recently deserved another shot to be put in the lineup. We know Warren Fogel's been a healthy scratch, and so here he is on the third line. So I had speculated he was talking about Warren Foegele, and there was nothing that happened in this game that made me rethink that opinion. It was the third line that had a few okay moments. I thought the Panarin line with Kempe and Laferriere was the best line. I thought Kopitar with Byfield and Moore had their moments here and there. And the Kuzmenko Turcotte Foegele line was okay. I just think they need to be a little more north-south. There were some nice passes. There were some nice moves, but it never really turned into anything. I will give credit to Warren Foegele. He had a nice screen on a point shot with the goal he pulled. Brandt Clarke scoring on that one. His 7th goal of the season and 29th point. Might have hit something on the way in. It went bar down and in. Nice shot, though, from Brandt Clarke regardless. And Andrei Kuzmenko had a few moments. He did have a partial break-in, but he didn't shoot. He stopped and waited for help, which never came. And, in a tight game, you don't want to turn down any of those decent shooting opportunities, but he did. He also did have a nice forecheck to create a loose puck, which led to the Byfield 2nd goal. But I would say mixed results from that third line. Corey Perry got into a fight with the game tied 1-1. It was in the second period. Jeremy Lauzon of Vegas hit Quinton Byfield into the boards, and Q kind of hit his head on the glass. I honestly didn't think it was a dirty hit, but it's also, one of those things where you're never going to be upset with a teammate who feels like he needs to step in to help another teammate or protect another teammate. Perry was on the ice. He saw it in front of him, and from his perspective, he felt like it was over the line and it deserved a response. So good on him for doing so. Unfortunately, he did get called for an instigating penalty, so the Kings had to kill off the power play, but they did, and that's their way of also, picking up their teammate as well. You have a teammate who makes a sacrifice for the good of another teammate, and then his teammates need to pick him up, and the Kings did a good job with that. Speaking of Perry, we'll see how it goes, but I thought that fourth line didn't have much bite to it in this game, and that was Samuel Helenius, Corey Perry, and Joel Armia. And we talked about how Jim Hiller, if he was going to put Warren Fogle back in the lineup, that he was going to have to make a decision about the fourth line. And it's been effective with Jeff Malott and Taylor Ward, but he feels like he needs to get Fogle and Armia and Perry all in the lineup. So Malott and Ward were out for this game. And I didn't think it worked, at least for this game, because Armia, while he had a great Olympics and I like him as a player, and while Perry is that net front presence that the Kings need in the lineup, they're not big forecheckers anymore. Perry doesn't do much of it. Armia doesn't really do much of it. And so, Ward and Malott are forecheckers. And so I thought that was a missing element in the Kings game. Final check of the player stats in the loss to Vegas. Quinton Byfield had 2 goals, also goals from Kempe and Clark. Artemi Panarin had 2 assists, so did Andrei Kuzmenko. Kopitar, Kempe, Clark also getting assists. Brant Clark with a 2-point night as well. Byfield and Kempe each had 4 shots on goal to lead the team. Alex Laferriere led the Kings in hits with 4. Adrian Kempe led the Kings in ice time, 22 minutes and 20 seconds. And I will say I did, while you're kind of looking for something positive, I thought the distribution of minutes amongst the defense was solid. Drew Doughty, it was close between all 6 of them. Drew Doughty had 21 minutes and 10 seconds. Mikey Anderson, 20 minutes and 12 seconds. Cody Ceci, 19 minutes, 21 seconds. Brant Clark, 19 minutes, 20 seconds. Joel Edmondson, 18 minutes and 6 seconds. And Brian Dumoulin had 17 minutes and 11 seconds. I think that's a decent ratio for your minutes for your defensemen. Andrei Kopitar won 11 of 18 faceoffs, 61.1% to lead the team. And a little bit ironic that the Kings moved Quinton Byfield out of the center spot, and he ends up going 4 for 4 on faceoffs in this game. So the Kings loss actually even worse because they had a great chance to gain ground in the playoff race. We'll tell you about that next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. Indeed is, if you're struggling to get your job post seen, Indeed sponsored jobs helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. Sponsored jobs boost your post to people who are the best match for your role, and that makes a real difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posts directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results. Use Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/locked-on. Just go to Indeed.com/locked-on right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. Join the Everydayer Club for ad-free audio, access to our group chat on Discord, and more. Use the code DEADLINE ahead of the trade deadline for 1 month free. That's DEADLINE. Join now at lockedonlakings.supercast.com or hit the link in the show notes. Well, the Kings went into Wednesday 3 points behind the Seattle Kraken for third in the Pacific Division and 3 points behind the Anaheim Ducks for the final wildcard spot. And the Kings got some help on the scoreboard. Kraken lose to the Stars 4-1. Mammoth lose to the Avalanche 4-2. The Ducks did rally to beat the Oilers 6-5. So when it's all said and done, the Kings are still in 5th place in the Pacific Division, still with 60 points. So they are now 3 points behind Seattle and 4 points behind the Oilers for the 3rd spot in the Pacific Division. Also 2 points up on the Sharks. As far as the wild card race goes, Kings did not lose any ground to Seattle or Utah, Kings are 3 points back of the Kraken, 4 points back of the Mammoth for a wild card spot. But the Ducks do jump up all the way from the final wild card spot to second place in the Pacific. So Anaheim helping themselves out a bit. The Kings, again, 3 points out of a wild card spot. So with a victory, they'd have been just 1 point out, but that was not to be. So with the Kings' disappointing loss to the Golden Knights, I know some of you will be saying, I told you this team wasn't any good. We need to sell, and we need to think about the future. And if we can't be that team with 5 of their players out, what chance do we have of winning a playoff series? So why bother? And you might be right, but I don't think the Kings are going to do that no matter what you think. I really don't think that's going to happen. And I think this loss to Vegas maybe only makes Ken Holland even more convinced the Kings need to add another player. And there continues to be smoke around Elias Pettersson of the Vancouver Canucks, who I'm not a big fan of, but speculation is the Canucks are looking for, in return, a roster player, a first-round pick, and a prospect. Dave Pagnotta of the Fourth Period said he feels like the player could be Alex Laferriere. As for who the prospect could be, I don't think Vancouver is looking for a goalie. They've got Thatcher Demko locked up long-term, although he does get hurt a lot. So it could be, if this were to be a thing, I think the Kings have 3 prospects that Vancouver would be interested in. Last year's first-round pick, defenseman Henry Bustevich, World Junior MVP Wojtek Šihas, or maybe forward Jimmy Lombardi, who we just profiled on a recent episode and is having one of the better seasons in the Ontario Hockey League this year. My colleagues over at Locked On Vancouver Canucks were talking about a potential trade. They talked about the old change of scenery for Elias Pettersson. They're not wrong to do so. A lot of people in hockey put some credence into that kind of thing. You know, he just needs a fresh start somewhere else, and he could be a great player. That's what they're saying about Elias Pettersson. It was also mentioned by the guys on Locked On Canucks that once upon a time, Elias Pettersson did play with Andrei Kuzmenko in Vancouver, and apparently they had a lot of good chemistry. I think one thing is for sure, don't expect a similar situation to what the Kings had when they got Artemi Panarin. That was a whole different situation. Panarin, when it was all said and done, basically only chose LA. Now, it's possible that Elias Pettersson could only decide to go to LA, but he's not going to be a free agent after this year. So if the Canucks don't get what they're looking for, they'll just hold on to him because he's signed long-term. He also has a no-trade clause, so he would have to want to come to LA. He would get to approve any final deal. But again, this isn't, the Kings were clearly in a position of power against the Rangers. That's not the case in a potential trade for Elias Pettersson from Vancouver. They know the Kings are desperate to add with the injury to Kevin Fiala. So, we can debate if Elias Pettersson is a good fit for LA, but frankly, the offense that Ken Holland wants to address so much, it's not going to matter if the Kings can't play defense. If they can't return to their identity, then the Kings have no chance, in my opinion, of making it into the playoffs this year. So, no rest for the LA Kings as they look to snap now a 4-game losing skid dating back to before the break. They will be in action Thursday night against the Edmonton Oilers, 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. And there was some talk about Connor McDavid getting rested after the Olympics. Not the case. McDavid played Wednesday night in Anaheim, so expect to see him in the lineup Thursday in LA. I know. Goody. The game will be on the FanDuel Sports Network locally, ESPN Plus nationally, and you can listen to it on the LA Kings app. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On LA Kings so you get the latest episodes. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On LA Kings ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonlakings.supercast.com to join. For you everydayers, those who listen to watch Locked On LA Kings every day, coming up on our next show, we'll recap the Kings-Oilers game, hoping for a better result. And of course, at the end of the week, we have our Kings weekly fan feedback show. If you want to get an email in for that, lockedoneddie@gmail.com is the email address. EDDIE. You're always welcome to post your thoughts if you're watching on YouTube in the comments section, and we'd love you to stay connected with the show on social media, X, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. We are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you as always for listening and watching Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you next time. And as always, go Kings, go.